Hello, lovely people. I'm back. My name is Alethea Thomas. Thank you for joining me on my channel. If you are into books, bookish content, classics, classic literature, you are in the right place because today I am going to be doing like a quick review of Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Little Women, I have read this book at least one other time that I can remember, so in my life now I have read it at least twice. I think now that I have read it again recently, I have realized how much I really loved this book, and I've decided I think I'm going to have to make this a yearly read for me. So I'm probably going to read this around Christmas every year or so. It's just such a cool and interesting book, and it begins in Christmas, so I think that's why I'm going to do that. We will get to the review of the book. I'm going to go over the background of the book. Then I'm going to go over the characters, the plot of the book, and the major themes, and then my thoughts on it. And then after that, we'll just end the video. So let's go ahead and get started with some background on the actual book itself. So Little Women was written by Louisa May Alcott as 2 volumes in 1868 and 1869. The book was based off of Alcott's family and the lives of her and her 3 sisters. The book was an instant success. When the first volume was issued, readers were eager for the rest of the story of all 4 girls and their journey into adulthood. So Alcott quickly wrote the second volume, which is called Good Wives, and it is sometimes published separately from the first volume, so sometimes you'll be able to pick up a copy that is just Little Women, the first half, and then Good Wives, which is the second half. If you buy the Penguin English Library Edition, you will get both books in one, and it is just called Little Women in the UK when it is published like this. Alcott's novel was so successful that she wrote 2 sequels after that. She wrote Little Men, and then she wrote Jo's Boys after that. We'll get into the characters of this book, and we'll just start off with the girls because they're the primary, they're all 4 the main characters really of the book. So Josephine Jo March, she's the second eldest sister and pretty much the main protagonist of the story. At least a lot of people feel like she's the main character of the story. So Jo is like the smart sister. She's a tomboy and she has a hot temper. Jo is a voracious reader and a writer, and she loves literature. Meg is the oldest of the March sisters. Meg represents the expectations of women during this time. She is lovely and is good at running a household. At the beginning of the novel, she has a job as a governess for a wealthy family, which is her aunt. And Meg wants to try and reach a higher for a good life. And that comes a lot of being influenced by being around her aunt and her aunt's family and trying to help take care of this rather wealthy family that she's a governess for. Elizabeth Beth March is the shy sister. She's musically gifted and is sweet and a gentle girl. Beth has a quiet wisdom about her, and she always kind of acts as the peacemaker in the family. Beth and Jo are really close. Beth is often kind of ill and just isn't as has like a sturdy enough like physical disposition as the rest of the girls. She's just, a bit more frail. Amy is the youngest of the sisters, and she is very artistic, and she's always carrying herself like a lady. Amy is sometimes vain and self-centered, but she's always loving to her family. Then we'll move on to the rest of the characters in the book. I'm not going to cover every single one because there are a number of characters that are mentioned in the book, but I'm going to focus on the ones that are kind of the core people in the girls' lives. So we'll start with Theodore Laurie Lawrence. He's a rich young boy who lives with his grandfather next door to the March family. He is older than Jo, but younger than Meg. And the March family become great friends with him over the years. Laurie is a regular fixture in the girls' lives. Margaret Marmee March is the mother of the girls. She's the steadfast rock for the girls and guides them through many of their problems of their youth. She runs the household while their father is away serving in the Civil War. Robert March is the father of the girls, and he had lent money to a friend, and that friend didn't pay him back. And because of that, he ended up putting his family into this kind of a poverty situation. He kind of suffered for this good act that he performed. So at the beginning of the novel, you are told that he has joined the Union Army as a chaplain. And that's the characters I'm going to go over. So now we're going to go over to the plot. Little Women is a coming-of-age story that follows the March sisters. The novel begins on Christmas Eve, and their father is away serving in the war as a chaplain. Each girl has their own talents and dreams. Each of the chapters is a standalone story of events that play out in the lives of the girls. The main story of the chapter is usually following one of the girls and ends in some kind of a lesson learned. This is especially true of the first half of the book. Each of the girls have struggles and difficulties to overcome. As they grow, they discover who they really are, what they truly desire, and what really matters in life. The second half of the book centers on what happens to the girls after the end of the first half. Some of them get married and start having families of their own, while others start new relationships and find love. Along with all that happiness, though, there is some sadness, and the book delves into great loss and how to deal with grief. I didn't want to spoil too much about the plot itself, so I'm just going to kind of leave it there. You can read the book and read the entire plot for each point, and it is just fantastic. It is a fantastic book. So this book, the major themes of the book, this book is heavily influenced by American Protestant Christian influence and ideas. The idea of charity, community, temperance, humility, and grace when you're faced with poverty. There's just so many practical pieces of knowledge in here of just how to be a good person, how to behave like a good person, how to behave, not above your station, to behave in a way that is, and in those days, of course, there were social norms, social, hierarchy, that sort of thing, and not to try and, go reach too high above your station, because it was seen as obscene, perhaps, to do that, or kind of like you were ungrateful for what, for the caste that you were in, which is kind of a ludicrous idea in these days. For instance, we're so heavily encouraged now to work as hard as we can, which the girls are also encouraged to work as hard as they can, but they're not encouraged to, be super wealthy people, try too hard to be out of the circles that they're in currently. So my thoughts on the book, I think, as I've mentioned before in previous videos, this is an absolutely outstanding book. It's so well written. Louisa May Alcott is so poetic. I like every line of this book practically. It's just such a pretty book. There's a lot of really solid, good advice in it. There's just the descriptions of the settings are wonderful. And following the girls through their lives, growing up through their childhood with them, you feel like you're there. You feel like you're walking through the snowdrifts with Laurie and Joe. You feel like you're going out with all four of the girls and Laurie into the field, looking up into the clouds, cloud-filled sky, daydreaming, coming up with your castle in the clouds. What is your ideal paradise? What do you really want? Just all of that. It's so dreamlike. You feel like you're there. The writing is so good. It's just so outstanding. I'm actually really interested to see if I might like Jo's Boys and also Little Men as well. I think I'll give those a shot too. I don't remember hearing much about those books because I read this a long time ago. I probably read this in middle school or early high school. I don't really recall. But I remember being impressed by it and liking it a lot still. I had just kind of forgotten about it over time, I think. Like I said, the advice is really good. What was really interesting, though, is reading it at the age that I am now. I have children of my own. And so reading it and watching Miss Marmy March, kind of usher her children through their struggles, I had a really good feeling and good understanding of that, because you do that as a parent yourself. You try to explain to your children how to deal with their problems in the best way that you know how, because you are influenced by your experience and you want to share your experience with them. And that's what Mrs. March is doing here. But she does it with such patience and such elegance and such grace and kindness. You know, she's always kind to her girls, and it's hard. It's just so hard to be a good parent sometimes. It's hard to be kind to your children sometimes. It doesn't come naturally to everyone. And I think that Miss March, and we don't really see much of the father up until the second half of the book. And he doesn't honestly say much. And I honestly didn't really connect to him at all. I just connected to Marmy. But, you know, you can really connect to her, and you can really draw some really good influence from Marmy March. In your younger years, you connect to the girls. So many girls have felt a connection to Jo, especially because she is this tomboy, she is this writer, she is this bookish girl, and so many of us that have read this book, of course, we are all bookish girls that have read this book, and there are lots of girls that haven't, you know, been bookish girls necessarily that have read this and have probably connected to one of the other girls in the book. Probably Jo, definitely not Meg, are ones that I've connected to. So Jo, not really Meg so much. You want to be like Beth. I mean, who doesn't want to be like Beth and just be an all-around kind person? Because that's what Beth is to me. Beth is just like the ultimate kind human being. You want to be like Beth. Not many people are like Beth, though. And then Amy, I could connect with, because it's very easy to be selfish. It's very easy to do unkind things or to complain a lot and whine a lot. It's very easy to do that. And also, I have an artistic side as well. So being interested in art probably would have connected me to Amy more. So, yeah. But I think those are really the ones that I've connected to the most out of the book. And just kind of learning lessons along with the girls. It's just absolutely fabulous. I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful way of teaching is through these books. Through a book like this is a wonderful way to teach kindness and humility. And all of the themes in this book necessarily. Let's edit this part in. Before I talk about what I didn't like, there are some spoilers in there. So if you don't want Little Women spoiled, freaking turn it off. Like, turn this video off now. I'm giving you that warning right now. So there's your warning. That's it. Things I didn't like. I will be honest. So, yeah, I'm on the side of the Jo and Laurie should have been together camp. I don't understand why Alcott decided to have Jo be with just this German teacher guy who shows up And yeah, I just don't get it. I mean, he's a perfectly kind man. It wasn't the fact that, he was unkind or anything like that. But I just don't understand why Alcott decided to go that direction with it. Maybe she decided that Laurie deserved a younger girl or something through Amy, but honestly, Amy is kind of a poor substitution for Jo, if you ask me. Jo has got so much more flair, so much more attitude, so much more to her character than Amy does. And Jo is, she's almost the main character of the book. So I really don't understand what Alcott's thought process was in that. Maybe there's something out there that has her explanation of the decision, but whatever. But it just seemed like, especially at the very beginning half of, like, the first half of this story, the whole story, is a connection between Jo and Laurie that's so strong. So I almost feel like that Laurie should have, like, mourned the loss of that relationship far longer than he did, instead of just, marrying Amy. Maybe he should have gone off to Europe and, drank himself to death or something like that. That would have been awful. But, so that's one thing I didn't particularly like. So another thing I didn't like was, although Christianity is not specifically mentioned in here, it's not the girls went to church on Sunday and this is what the pastor said, and none of that is in this book. I think that Louisa May Alcott did an excellent job, perhaps especially for the time, because the Catholic Church and Protestantism were still pretty, like, cutthroat towards each other. And I think the Baptists may have even been on the rise at this point as well in American history. But she did not specify what religion the girls and their parents were, or any of the characters. They didn't talk about religion at all. They talked about God. They didn't talk about Jesus necessarily. You should pray for your anger and that kind of thing. And that's perfectly fine, because the people had to believe in something back in the day. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I think that, like I said, Louisa May Alcott made a perfectly fine choice, but really not going deep into religion, because she could have gotten into some really sticky, argumentative stuff if, like argument inducing stuff had she gone deep into religion. But I think she kind of just did surface level stuff and kept it safe that way. So she did a great job there with that. I think that the woman's place being in the home, for the time, that's how people thought. That's how it was. Modern interpretations of it, Jo could have, to me, been perfectly happy if she never wanted to marry Laurie. That's totally fine, or marry anybody for that instance. She could have just had her own job and paid for herself for the rest of her life, been an author for the rest of her life, never had children if she wanted to, and that would have been a perfectly good situation for her as well. So, there's a lot of, stereotypical woman place is in the home sort of, overall theme in this book, which I don't personally agree with. However, that is the way people thought back then, and I understand that completely. So that was my only problem with the book. Otherwise, it's so good. It's so cozy. It's so lovely. There is, just knitting and tea and, darning socks and the fireplace and, enjoying the warm and coziness of your house, snuggling up in a blanket and eating apples. That sort of stuff is all over this book, and it's so precious, and it's so beautiful, and it's so fun. So all of that coziness and just the writing and everything involved and growing up with these girls, that makes up for any imperfections whatsoever. I think that this is another 5-star read for me. It will always be a 5-star read for me, even if I don't like just a few tiny things in it. So, I think that's probably all I have to say on Little Women. So another perfect 5 stars for me. So currently my favorites are Jane Eyre and Little Women. And I'm looking forward to finding even more favorites as we continue on through this journey through the classics. So I think I'll wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much again for joining me. I am on Goodreads. You can find me at goodreads.com/Alethea Thomas. It's in the description below. I'm also on Discord in the server called Book Lovers Haven, and it's a really cute little Discord. There are thousands of people that are on there. I'm under Alethea Thomas, so if you happen to see me there, you can wave hello. And I'm happy to take DMs, and I'm happy to chat and do book recs. I kind of hang out in the book recs little area on there, so it's really cool. I like it. But anyway, I think that's about it. And thanks so much to the subscribers that have subscribed to me lately. There's like 20 of you guys now. I can't believe it. I never thought in a million years I would get really any subscribers, and I was just gonna throw these videos out into the void and see what happens. But I've got a bunch of subscribers now. It's so nice. I don't know how to look up your names, though. I have to figure that out. Because I don't think it can tell me that yet. I have 20 subscribers now. So thank you guys so much for subscribing. And I'm never going to turn this into a monetized thing. That is not my day job. I will always continue to keep it free and not monetize this sort of thing, because I don't want to get money from YouTube anyway. This is just for my funsies. Thanks again. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.